Thank you for joining us. One would think it's hard enough for people in this world to understand important things in life and to thereby make sensible decisions and choices. But adding to the confusion is the powerful influence of mass media, which most of us trust as the authority to give us news, entertainment, and education. We believe that journalists and networks have a moral obligation to report the facts and not twist the truth and not lie by omission or incite hatred. One of America's most famous journalists for many years, Helen Thomas, had a front row seat in the White House press room. Recently, she was exposed as being anti-Semitic. This was indisputably revealed during her interview on the White House lawn with David Nesenoff, an American rabbi, independent filmmaker, and blogger. We'll see this unedited video and talk about it with him and hear his views on media coverage and the responsibility in general of mass media following these messages.
Healthcare costs are bankrupting America. The cause is federal overregulation. Unless a free market is restored, no one, including government, business, or individuals, will be able to afford the high cost of health care. My new book, Pharmocracy, exposes the corruption that causes needless suffering and death while our nation sinks into financial ruin. The solutions in this book can save Medicare and improve the lives of aging Americans. Pharmocracy provides an irrefutable basis to stop the suffocating impact of healthcare regulation. The benefit will be better medical technology at far lower prices. Fight back against corruption. Pharmocracy shows how we can tear down bureaucratic barriers that push healthcare costs beyond the reach of the American people. We can do it.
This essential book is only $24, and you'll also receive a free subscription to Life Extension magazine. Get your book today.
Don't miss the Atlanta Sensational Summer Special. Book now and your fourth night is free. Plus, receive up to a $400 airfare credit, now including summer travel. And kids stay and eat free. Enjoy a taste of Atlanta's past, valued at over $150, with free drinks and tastings from select Atlanta's restaurants. Plus, free unlimited access to the largest water park and casino in the Caribbean. The Atlanta Sensational Summer Special ends soon.
I'd like to ask you, Mr. President, your decision to invade Iraq has caused the deaths of thousands of Americans and Iraqis, wounds of Americans and Iraqis for a lifetime. Every reason given, publicly at least, has turned out not to be true. My question is, why did you really want to go to war? From the moment you stepped into the White House, from your cabinet, former cabinet officers, intelligent people, and so forth. What was your real reason? You have said it wasn't oil, quest for oil. It hasn't been Israel or anything else. What was it?
Yeah, I think your premise, and all due respect to your question and to you as a lifelong journalist, is that, you know, I didn't want war. To assume I wanted war is just flat wrong, Helen, and all due respect. No, hold on for a second, please. Excuse me. No president wants war. Everything you may have heard is that, but it's just simply not true. My attitude about the defense of this country changed on September the 11th. When we got attacked, I vowed then and there to use every asset at my disposal to protect the American people. Our foreign policy changed on that day, Helen.
Helen, this is my inaugural moment here. I'm really excited.
Mr. President, do you think that Pakistan and are maintaining the safe havens in Afghanistan for these so-called terrorists? And also, do you know of any country in the Middle East that has nuclear weapons?
Well, I think that Pakistan, there is no doubt that in the Fatah region of Pakistan, in the mountainous regions along the border of Afghanistan, that there are safe havens where terrorists are operating. It's not acceptable for Pakistan or for us to have folks who, with impunity, will kill innocent men, women, and children.
Any advice for these young people over here for starting out in the press corps?
Go for it. You'll never be unhappy. You'll always keep people informed, and you'll always keep learning. The greatest thing of the profession. Never stop learning.
Today they're covering the Jewish Heritage Month. Today, yeah.
Are you going to meet the president?
And we're any comments on Israel? We're asking everybody today. Any comments
Tell
on
them to
Israel?
get the hell out of Palestine.
Ooh. Any better comments?
Helen is one. Remember, these people are occupied, and it's their land. It's not German. It's not Poland.
So where should they go? What should they do?
They go home.
Where's the home?
Poland.
So the Jews,
Germany.
The Jews go back to Poland and Germany.
And America and everywhere else. Why push people out of there who have lived there for centuries? See?
Oh. Now, are you familiar with the history of that region and what took place?
Very much. I'm of Arab background.
I see. Do you speak Arabic?
Huh? No, Shwai.
Shwai.
Very little. We were too busy Americanizing our parents.
Oh, my goodness.
With us now is Rabbi David Nesenoff. Rabbi, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Richard.
We just saw this video with veteran White House correspondent Helen Thomas, and what an interesting little expose that was. Before we get into how you did it, let's talk generally for a moment. How do you see the responsibility and irresponsibility of members of the media in today's world?
Wow, what a question. You start right off, huh? I have to say that, that woman, Helen, had the front row seat for many years. And it's a rare seat. It's a rare opportunity for a person to sit in the front row. And I got to tell you, it's been 2 years now since that incident happened on the White House front lawn. And in a sense, metaphorically and in some sense realistically, I got myself a front row view of media in this country and worldwide. Not only being in the eye of the tornado when all the media was hitting me, but in the last 2 years traveling around the world, speaking at different places, and still reevaluating how the media actually covered that story and how it covers other stories now. You know, when someone listening out there, their child's in a soccer game and they read the local paper and they see that some of the facts were wrong in the local paper about the little soccer game, they come to realize, that article was wrong. Well, think about all the other articles that you don't know the facts about. Some of those facts could be wrong as well. And I've come to learn that the media, for selfish reasons, for ignorant reasons, for irresponsible reasons, for just poor working reasons, whatever their reasons are, they don't get really good grades when it comes to how they cover stories and what they're trying to do. It's a show. It's about money. This is nothing new for some people might say, but even the big ones, and not just the bloggers, and not just little cable, stations, little cable stations, but there's a lot of irresponsibility going on. Sometimes it's just because they're just poor at it, and sometimes it's because they're really have a terrific agenda that they just want to uphold.
As a matter of fact, in my opinion, what occurs too much of the time is media is guilty of lying by omission, telling half-truths, which actually distorts the opinion of the masses by not providing them with balanced and real facts. What are your thoughts with regard to lies by omission?
Sure. Well, first of all, the good news is when it's omission. That's when they're good. It's when they actually take the facts or tell the complete, incorrect facts and just make up facts or make up lies or, So the omission part is when they're actually behaving. But I spent 6 months in Israel this year, and just the story of Gaza and the Sderot and the neighboring towns and Ashkelon, and how many times there are bombs lobbed and lobbed and lobbed and lobbed over. Talk about omission. Can you imagine? Take any state in this country, in the United States, where something was lobbed over. We have little incidents here and there or whatever takes place, and it's blown up in the media for whatever it is. Picture a neighboring country just lobbying. It's not even a neighboring country. Gaza is part of Israel. Lobbying and lobbying over and over again, and no one talks about it. But we know what they cover. We know what they cover, and we know how they cover the Palestinian problem, the poor Palestinians. And it really, really is a tremendous propaganda. And sometimes, as I said, they make it up, and sometimes they just feed into it. And this isn't just coming because, oh, well, he's a rabbi, look at his point of view, he's a Zionist, he's this and that. Let's just start with, how come there are so many conflicts in this world that are going on right now? And when there comes to point a finger, whether it be at the UN, or whether it be in the New York Times or CNN, how come there's discussion on Israel? Why isn't there discussion on all these other countries? Just that alone.
So what do you call that disproportionate fascination with Israel while omitting a greater interest or equivalent interest in other parts of the world?
Let me think of what I call it. I'm going to think of a word. Let me think of what I call it. Anti-Semitism. That's what I call it. That's what it is. And people don't like that. They like, oh, everything's anti-Semitism. Well, it's been around for many years. People didn't like it, back in Germany. It's not anti-Semitism. It's just, it's not anti-Semitism. Helen Thomas wasn't anti-Semitic. She was anti-Israel. She wasn't. Really, she wants an entire region of the world cleansed of a certain people, and they should go back to a place where the cleansing began. But that's not anti-Semitic. That's just a anti-Israel feeling. When it comes to these anti-Semites, they're actually very smart. And that's the one thing most people think, that ignorance and anti-Semitism go together. It's not. Anti-Semitism is not exclusive and away from brilliance. There can be brilliant people that are anti-Semites, and they use their brilliance to hurt Jews.
It's interesting that you say that. Germany is a land of great culture, esteemed literature, science, classical music, and so forth. Yet, in this country, this process of mass murder was tolerated. So, if it's not accompanied by social responsibility, all this brilliance in art and science and so forth is perhaps worthless. So how do you explain the fact, though, that these educated individuals in Nazi Germany and other educated people continue perpetuating this anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism, as they call it now?
I shot a film this year called 3,000 Miles, and I asked the Holocaust survivor in the film, why the Jews? Why? And she looked at the camera and she said, why is a crooked letter? What did she say? She meant, really, you can't answer why, but there are certain factors that come together that make it even worse for Jews. Certain factors are certain political things going on in the world, financial problems going on in the world. Be careful. In this country, if there's a recession, if there's a depression, if in the world, if things happening in Greece, if there are things happening in Europe, be careful, because Germany, just look at it. We say we learn from history, so I won't repeat again. Really? When is that going to happen? Look at the history. When people are down, the only way to lift yourself up, the bad way to lift yourself up that they come up with is to step on someone else. And when you step on someone else, you feel better. So that's what took place in Germany. They were down. They might have been educated people, but they were down. And they needed to step on somebody. And for some reason, when you step on the Jew, it's tolerated. And people jump in. There'll be people listening to this. There are people who send me emails. There are people who that will be so disgusting by the answer to what I'm saying. In trying to argue with me, they won't even argue intelligently. They'll argue with such disgust. You look at RabbiLive.com, see what people wrote.
I saw some of these disgusting anti-Semitic remarks. So in effect, there's also the question of collusion. The Allies, in fact, knew what the Nazis were doing during World War II. There are so many incidents that one could...
How could that be, that people knew what was going on and no one did anything? How could that be, that there's a madman, Ahmadinejad, Yamach Shemo, may his name and his being be erased from this world. He is announcing that he wants to destroy and wipe Israel off the map. The Khomeini of this period, their grand ruler, is saying the same thing, specifically over and over again at the United Nations, in Tehran, announcing to the world over again, we want to wipe them off the map. And they're, in the meantime, trying to put together some nuclear devices. And the world is quiet. Yeah, where are the discussions on it and everything else? You would think that someone would say, hey, wait a minute, let's go do something. Let's take care of this immediately, right now. None of this nonsense. So years later, people will go, gee, how did that happen? Why didn't anybody do anything? I don't get it.
This reminds me of what occurred prior to World War II when Neville Chamberlain, Prime Minister of England, was trying to appease Hitler. And many people today agree that appeasement does not work. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, everybody wants it just to work out. Everybody wants to, unless someone cuts you off on the road, okay, driving down a U.S. highway, then you're allowed to have rage, okay? But, if there's a nuclear dictator who wants to destroy an entire people, then we have to, appease, and no one wants war. We all want to do it calmly, and we all want to do it that way, and that's fine. But at some point, one has to realize that, this is a madman. There are madmen that exist. Sometimes they cut you off on the road and you'll swear that person's crazy, and sometimes they run an entire country and we can swear that person's crazy, and it's up to every single person to try to push and get rid of that person in whatever way we have to. I also go, before we point fingers at all these other politicians and people, let's start with even our Jewish community and our Jewish leaders and our Jewish organizations. Are they doing enough? Sometimes we get involved. What does an organization do best? Looks after its organization. The cause, we forget about after a while. There was a funny Tracy Ullman, the comedian. She used to have a show, and it was at a gala. She portrayed a woman at a gala event for some disease they were raising money for. And moments before all the guests came in or whatever, she has the whole place beautifully set up, and she gets a phone call that the disease she was trying to cure was cured. And she starts crying. Look at the balloons and this and everything's all beautiful, ready to go. And she's so upset. And her husband's comforting her. Oh, she says, why does this happen to me? And her husband's saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay. She's so upset that the event had to be canceled. She forgot that the disease was cured. And I think some of our organizations are too busy trying to put the gala events together, and they're forgetting what's going to actually cure it, which things have been cured, and what we're supposed to be doing. They forgot the cause, because it's just one big business churning and churning. And sure, I'm just an individual who doesn't have the gala events and doesn't have to do that and doesn't have to be beholden to some board or some organization, so I can talk like this. But I think we have to wake up a little and realize, where were those boards and those organizations when Hitler was killing Jews in the ovens? I'm shocked. I was born after, but I'm shocked. Who were those? Where were they? Well, we couldn't. Well. Okay, now's your chance. Wake up.
And where were they when the ship, the St. Louis, was coming with Jews from Germany to look for refuge over here and were sent back to their death?
Yeah, they were voting for FDR. That's where they were.
We're back with David Nesenoff. David, let's continue and talk a little bit about your background. You went to Yeshiva University. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I think I've covered in Jewish life a great spectrum of Jewish denominations and Jewish communities. I grew up in a conservative movement synagogue, went to Yeshiva University, which is the Orthodox, received my degrees from there. I went to the Jewish Logical Seminary, received a master's, ordination, and a doctorate from there. I'm an avid Chabadnik, very strong supporter of Lubavitcher Chabad, and a great lover and supporter of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel, Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel. I've had the opportunity to practice a lot of those different things within all those different movements and within Israel. And so I feel quite fortunate, and my kids have experienced a lot of that also and have really become quite strong within the Chabad movement.
You're also very creative in the movie industry. Tell us about your experiences and your track record there.
Sure. I think ultimately, they say that the clergy, the rabbi, his job is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. So I believe in that. And I also believe in doing it in a creative way. I'm a storyteller. So ultimately, it put me in front of a group of people, as I've spoken the last 2 years all over the world. I can tell a story. I speak and I speak well, and I enjoy it. But ultimately, when you give a visual, as we see with Helen Thomas or any of the other videos I've made, I have had films at Sundance Film Festival. I've had a film that premiered at the Simon Wiesenthal Center this year. You can tell a great, I could tell a great story using the visual. It just enhances what I'm trying to do in how I'm speaking.
Now, this pastramian politics, you did that spontaneously, and I understand that you had a reason in walking into various delis and so forth and speaking about food initially, and then asking them about their interest in Israel and so forth. Why did you begin with food?
Well, first of all, I got permission from, I'm a filmmaker, I got permission from the location, from the site. I also, everyone signed off, and said it was okay to interview them. And so, that's where I went. And just to not jump in with a question of, tell me how you voted, or tell me what you think, or tell me if you're a Democrat. Start off with saying, what are you eating? And then people, I'm having pastrami, I'm having turkey, I'm having the Thursday special, I'm having celery, whatever they're doing. And then we go into, we're here in a Jewish deli, Israel's on our mind. Tell me about Israel, and then we go into tell me about this country in Israel. And people were very forthcoming, more than I ever thought, with what they thought about what's going on.
And I know that some people were accusing you of doctoring it, on just editing what you wanted to say to make a statement. But actually, you're not a Republican, you're not anti-Obama, you actually are a Democrat. So please explain that to our audience.
Well, I was. Let me first say that people accuse me of actually having actors say the things that they said. These were people that I walked in at. You can't get actors to act that well, So these were people that I just walked up to, and they said what they said, and the entire 6 minutes is on RabbiLive.com, and you could see that, people overwhelmingly said they voted for Obama and they weren't going to vote for him again, or they had issues, or they were confused. And I'm actually like one of those people sitting in the diner, sitting in the deli. They say a Republican is a liberal who was mugged. I am a liberal who was mugged on the White House lawn 2 years ago. And since then I've really, and I said it on CNN that I'm going to reevaluate, and I have reevaluated. And I am not pleased with the person I voted for, who is Obama. Okay, I am not pleased specifically with Israel, and some say you can't vote just because of Israel. You can vote just because of Israel. People vote because of abortion. People vote because they're unemployed and they want a job. People vote because their wife is voting that way, or their parents are voting that way. People vote for all different reasons. It's America. I can vote for any way I want, especially if I pick the one that I think is going to be the most dangerous one.
Well, there's also a question, David. Until 1967, the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, Gaza, the Golan were in the hands of Arab countries, and there was no peace. Why would they accept today what they refused to accept?
And why couldn't I go to the Western Wall before 1967? Why couldn't I pray there? Why were all the cemeteries, Jewish cemeteries, destroyed when it was in Arab-Muslim hands? When people complained that, the mosque in New York was being built, on or near the site of, 9/11, that area, that's what they do. Take over the area, look at the Kotel HaMa'arivi, the Western Wall, the most sacred site, the Holy Mount. Okay, let's put a mosque on top of it. Kever Rachel, the tomb of Rachel, it's a mosque now. For thousands of years, thousands of years. It's been the place where Rachel, the Jewish matriarch, died. All of a sudden, it's a mosque. I mean, how do you negotiate? How do you talk this way with people? It's a very dangerous situation.
David, all we can do is hope for the best. Before we conclude, I'd like you to share with our audience what your plans are for the future.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, the old expression, Menschen tracht und Gott lacht. Man makes plans and God laughs. My life has been a hashgacha pratis ride. It's been a divine intervention ride. That I think I'm doing this, and I wind up I'm over here. So some of it is just holding on to the roller coaster and seeing where it goes, and that really goes for everybody. I've spoken, and I'll continue to speak around the world and certainly around the country, not just about my story, but it's a story about everybody. That when you decide you want to do something or make an effect in the world, you do have a partner above who is going to help you out with that. The future for me, as far as what this mensch is trachting, what this man is planning, is to continue using video and film in very creative ways to tell stories and to show things, whether it be with feature film or with viral videos, and to continue speaking around the country, explaining those ideas as well.
Well, David, your fans are very impressed with you and proud of all that you've done so far in your career, and I'm sure you're going to do wonderful things in the future too. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I want you on several more times in the future at your convenience.
I love hanging out with you. You're very impressive, so you do a lot of great work here, and I'd love to be part of it as well.
Thank you, David. This brings us to the end of our special show for today. I'm Richard Peritz. Thank you for being with us.